There's a new category of victims in Gaza: aid seekers. People are being forced to travel to a handful of distribution sites that are backed by Israel and the US to get food. And they're coming under fire. Mainly, it appears, from the Israeli military. In the last few weeks, 600 people have been killed, according to officials in Gaza, and more than 4,000 have been injured.
We see all these people with their bags ready to go pick up this aid, and I feel for them. I think they know as well. It's a Russian roulette. Am I going to come back? Am I going to get injured? Am I going to get food?
So what's happening? Well, you've got a population of 2 million people who are starving. Gaza is the hungriest place on earth, and its entire population is at risk of famine, according to the UN. That's because throughout the war, Israel has been blocking the entry of food and other aid into the Strip. Earlier this year, there was a period of 11 weeks when no aid at all was allowed in. Some trucks carrying food supplies are now getting through, but aid agencies say it's nowhere near enough. And people in Gaza are absolutely desperate.
You're talking about tens of trucks per day, whilst the need in the Gaza Strip is 600 per day.
So there's the issue of not enough food and aid getting in, but there's also another issue: how that aid is being distributed. Before, distribution was mainly handled by the UN, which coordinated with other humanitarian organizations. But Israel was always critical of that system and said aid was being stolen by Hamas, something the group denies. In late May, Israel brought in a whole new way of doing things. A new organization backed by Israel and the US started operating and took over the distribution of most of the food aid. It's called the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, or GHF. It says it's an independent organization providing vital food aid.
What is your understanding of what the GHF is actually handing out to people?
Most of it's like flour, cans, and these kind of food. When we say food is not available, it's not just like a joke. It's a reality, because even markets, very few supplies which are still there, the prices are higher.
The GHF says it's distributed nearly 40 million meals in its first month, although it's also said that people in Gaza desperately need more aid. Now, the GHF has been super controversial ever since it was set up. It works with private US military contractors. How it's funded isn't clear. And its first executive director quit because he said it wasn't possible for the GHF to abide by humanitarian principles of humanity, neutrality, impartiality, and independence.
To our knowledge, they don't come with a humanitarian background, rather a security/military background.
And unlike the UN, which used to have about 400 distribution sites across Gaza, the GHF so far has 4. And they're all in what are called red zones, which now cover most of Gaza. These are areas where the Israeli military is operating and where evacuation orders are in place for civilians. So people basically have no choice but to go into these particularly dangerous areas to try to get food, although there's no guarantee they'll get any. And the GHF sites are guarded by Israeli forces and private military contractors.
The reports have it that almost every single time there is an aid distribution, people are being killed.
There are plenty of testimonies now from people who've been to these sites about what happens there, and they all describe similar scenes. I've been in contact with a reporter in Gaza who told me this. People begin gathering around the distribution points from the evening hours, tens of thousands of them. At around 4 a.m., the distribution point signals with a green light via quadcopters, i.e. drones, telling people you have only 5 minutes. Immediately, the crowds surge forward in a desperate rush. Then, after 5 minutes, the quadcopters switch off the green light and gunfire and shelling begin instantly. People start running and fleeing with whatever they can manage to grab. It's like hell. I spoke to several people who were there. Some were injured, others were killed. The scene is one of random, indiscriminate gunfire from every direction.
The injuries we see are a lot of gunshot wounds, which they're quite traumatic. Today we saw one directly in the chest, so they arrived dead on arrival. A few times they've been shot to the head as well. Yesterday, we saw one that had a shot in the throat, another one was shot in the eye. We actually have to plan for our teams to increase the number of staff we have if we know the distribution site is open. Because we know that when the distribution site is open, there's going to be a lot of wounded and injured people coming.
Now, the head of the GHF has said that their system is working and that there are Gazans who express their thanks every day. The Israeli military has issued several statements in response to specific incidents. For example, in one case, it said troops identified several suspects moving toward them and carried out warning fire. Another statement described troops firing warning shots to distance suspects who were advancing and posed a threat to the troops. And in many cases, the Israeli military has said it's looking into what happened.
The IDF is committed to uncovering the truth and will examine any incident that requires review.
But Israeli soldiers have told the Israeli newspaper Haaretz that commanders ordered troops to shoot at crowds to drive them away or disperse them, even though it was clear they posed no threat. Now, there has been some international criticism of what's happening with the aid situation in Gaza, but these killings of aid seekers have been going on for weeks now.
People are being killed simply trying to feed themselves and their families. The search for food must never be a death sentence. Any operation that channels desperate civilians into militarized zones is inherently unsafe.
What does the fact that these shootings are happening and hundreds of people are being injured tell you about how Israel is conducting aid distribution in Gaza right now?
I just wish that Israel would leave aid distribution to the UN. Just leave it to those who know what to do. They know their work. A lot of experience we have, a lot of staff. We've been doing this for so long and without harming anybody.
This is all happening against a backdrop of increasing chaos and lawlessness in Gaza. The reporter I was in contact with said the majority of the gunfire comes from the Israeli side, but there are also gangs of thieves and dealers, often armed with knives and other weapons, who assault civilians. A UN official also said convoys carrying humanitarian aid have been intercepted by armed Palestinian gangs.
What can you tell us about this sense of lawlessness and chaos on the ground?
When you haven't eaten, for 3 months, your children are hungry, you will do anything to get food for them. So lawlessness or not, it's more like desperation.
And what all these humanitarian groups are saying is that desperation can be alleviated if only Israel would let more aid in.
For more than almost 2 years, we have been asking the international community for a simple thing. We just need safe, sustained humanitarian access to all areas of Gaza. And unfortunately, instead of opening the borders to allow the aid to get in, we are seeing people being injured, shot at, wounded, while they are waiting only to receive food and get this food for their children and families.